to the Public Works Union contract negotiations, and that's spread across multiple funds. So it was small dollars through a number of different funds. So we just summed it up here to say that's what the amount impacting in total. And that was because when we did the budget, by the time the budget was complete, the negotiations were still going on. And you can see the funds there. There's 6 funds involved with that expense increase. And overall expense increase is $32,500. And that relates to the PD task force position that was added, including wages and benefits, $112,500 of expense. And then we're receiving PD task force grant revenue of $80,000 with offsets that $112,000 additional expense, netting to the $32,500. And that is in the current expense fund. There's a few other various changes to various funds you can see in the first one relates to our current expense fund. There was donations budgeted low based on annualization. That's increasing our revenue by $13,000. There is just a small increase in expense at $200 for budget increase due to the deputy city clerk. You can see in funds 112 and 00 fund, there's an overall expense increase at $2,200 related to ARPA and the Wi-Fi grant installation. We had our express bill pay and web check budgeted amount was only for one service, not both. So that's been adjusted by that amount. And that affects a number of different funds due to how it's allocated out. The first one is our IT fund, and the next is our utility funds, water, sewer, wastewater, stormwater. Zero impact on small tools, budgeted in wrong line items, so the net effect was 0. So we moved the funds from 12 to 001, just a movement of between funds to account for that. And then there's some ARPA transfers, but that's moving the money that we received last year for ARPA, the $1.3 million. Some of those projects that are occurring in different funds, but our funds were received in current expense. So we're having interfund transfers to move that ARPA revenue into the correct fund that has the expenditure. And you can see it affects 4 funds there. And that's all we have for the changes.
All right. We'll go to council members for any questions or comments, and we'll begin with Councilmember Jessup.
At the moment, thank you.
Councilmember Cleveland.
Any questions?
Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, Brian, I don't remember going through this exercise in the past. There's some pretty small amounts like adjustments to salaries. I know that it's required. What's unique about this year?
No, we did a budget amendment last year in the second quarter of last year. We just decided to put everything in there that we had in the amendment.
Okay.
This year. Some of those smaller ones, technically, I don't think they're material, so you might not have to do them. But we were in the process of putting together the adjustments, so we thought we'd express it entirety.
Okay. Thanks, Brian.
Councilmember Williams.
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Espinosa.
And a quick question. You said that there was an additional expense of $8,000 for the purchase of a vehicle?
Correct. So it was approved in the capital facility plan at $37,000, but then when it went to council for approval to actually purchase the vehicle, it was approved at $45,000. So
Okay.
we still had it in our budget as the 37. So we just increased it by 8, which was approved by council.
Is this a utility truck or? something, or is that what kind of vehicle is that?
Yeah, I believe it's either for water or parks.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
It's the parks pickup.
Yeah, and with the volatility with pricing and inflation, definitely when we budget it and then go to purchase it, there can be variances. And we're probably going to see that more going forward with rampant inflation.
And Councilmember Sherman,
No questions, thank you.
is there any additional discussions at this time? Seen any? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the ordinance number 22-006, amending the 2022 budget.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Councilmember Williams, second.
Any additional discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, it's unanimous. The ayes have it, and the motion is passed. Thank you, Brian and Desiree. Let's see, we're going to go more next to the commercial drive debt payment, and Brian is still up for that.
Lisa, can you bring up the next
Sure.
next agenda item?
Maybe, there we go.
So we're constantly looking at our amount of debt load that we carry, and with the projects coming up in the near future, potentially the Southwest Sewer, and that all likelihood we'll have to issue a bond on that. And with the number of projects we have with the Public Works Trust Fund this year, we have a number of debt items coming on the books. There are debt limits that we're required to meet as the city. Our general obligation debt is limited to 2.5% of our assessed property value, of which 1.5% can be non-voted debt. When we look at our total amount, we can have a limit of approximately $22.7 million in debt, of which a total can be, I think it's upwards to $11 million in councilmanic debt that we don't have to go to the city for vote approval. We're significantly below that amount currently. But one thing I wanted to, can you click on the debt limits sheet? So just so I step back a bit, here's the detail of what we can have in our debt. And as I spoke, we have the non-voted debt that can be 1.5% of our assessed value. We can go up to 2.5% of debt if it's voted. So that relates to general obligation debt. So that's basically current expense stuff that we're going out and spending money. We do have other areas in which we can assume debt, but if any of it's related to any debt that we receive from any of the state agencies or federal agencies, that amount is not included in that general obligation debt. Although currently our debt is, I believe it's about 8.1 million, but we have a significant amount of debt coming online. Like I said, with potentially with the wastewater treatment plant, we're going to have debt coming online of about 2.8. It's more than that. It's about $4.5 million for the Southwest Sewer project. That's going to be coming in next year. Although that amount does not go against our general obligation debt, we have to keep in mind that we do have a 10% debt limit in total. And we really feel we have to leave ourselves some room if we need some general obligation debt room in order to finance a project. We don't have anything really planned, but keeping that in mind, we were thinking about or wanting to kind of reduce some of our debt levels. And we do have some excess funds available. We're quite liquid right now with approximately, we have currently, Deshree, if you can remind me, I think we have about $7 million of cash in the bank on hand. We do have, a couple years ago, we were using Banner Bank and we left Banner Bank, but some money is in that account and there's enough money to pay off our loan that we have at Banner Bank. And it's a 2012 general obligation bond for the Commercial Drive project. And that has 2 payments left totaling $261,748. And it's at 4.5% interest. Most of the debt we're going to be incurring in the next year is significantly lower, some of it between 0.5% to 1%. So that being in mind, we really like to recommend that we use some of those excess reserves we have, especially the money in Banner Bank, to pay off that general obligation debt on the Commercial Drive project, the $261,478. And we're looking for your approval to go ahead and pay off that loan and reduce some of that debt.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carlton. Let's go to council members for questions or comments. Mr. Jessup,
At the moment, thank you.
Mr. Cleveland,
No questions.
Mr. Peterson.
Yeah, what is our balance at Banner right now?
It's about 350,000.
445, I just logged in.
Oh, thank you.
What
More
was
than I
that?
thought.
445,000, a little over.
Okay,
And it's our intention to close the Banner account after that's paid off.
We do have some outstanding checks still
Oh,
that
so we'll
should not go through, but things happen and sometimes they do. So that's one of the reasons we've also kept it open. At the end of this year, all of those will go to unclaimed property though.
thank you.
Mr. Espinosa.
Yeah, Brian, would paying off that debt have an impact on any other city business at all?
Not with the level of reserves we're currently carrying in the current expense or in the bank account in general. There's about $2.5 million in ending fund balance currently in the current expense fund, and that's over what we currently expect for the end of the year for ending fund balance. So, in my opinion, we're in really good shape.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Williams.
I don't have any questions. I am glad that you're on top of this because I think this is absolutely a good idea.
Thank you.
Ms. Sherman.
I like this idea a lot, and I'm assuming with you said only 2 other payments left, there wouldn't be a prepayment penalty at all.
No, there is not.
Thank you.
Yeah, and also eventually by closing the Banner Bank, we will also save on monthly fees we're incurring there. Although they're not large, but we will save some money.
$6.
Yep.
All right. And the rate is 4.5%. Is that what I read?
Yes.
Thank you.
So actually the net payoff will probably be below that 261 once I get a buyout number. But that's currently what the current balance is.
Okay. All right, is there any additional discussion? Mr. Peterson.
Well, if I can figure out how my computer works here in a minute. I'd move to authorize the finance director to pay off the final 2 payments of the Commercial Drive GO bond held at Banner Bank in the amount of $261,748.00.
I'll second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, it's unanimous. The ayes have it and the motion is passed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next is the council chambers remodeled AV upgrade contract award, and Mr. Rickard will present on that in person in your council chambers.
Thank you, Mayor. Last month, we went out to bid on the council chamber project, and we got two bidders, Nelson Construction and KC Industries. We asked both of them to do a bid alternative on the project. The design included the renovation of the council chambers, the AV upgrade, AV new data drops into the offices of the building, and then as an alternate was for upgrading the HVAC system in the building. So when you look at the bid breakdown, KC Industries actually with the bid alternative is lower than Nelson Construction. However, we do not have the budget to include the HVAC part in this phase of the remodel. So that then makes Nelson Construction the low bidder at $675,000 and roughly just over that. We're asking council to approve that with 10% contingency plus sales tax. So that brings it just over $800,000. They have 8 months to complete the project once we actually enter into issue the notice to proceed. So tonight we're asking council to authorize staff to issue a notice of intent to award to Nelson Construction Corporation and an amount not to exceed $675,000 roughly plus 10% contingency and sales tax. Any questions?
Any questions, Councilmember Jessup?
Not at the moment, thank you.
Mr. Cleveland?
No question.
Mr. Peterson?
No questions.
Mr. Espinosa?
Yes, John, I have a question. So the project is $675 for Nelson Construction plus $605 for an HVAC system on top of that for a total of $1.2 million.
That was what was bid. We're not proposing to do the bid alternate number one, which is that $605,000. So the total amount with a 10% contingency and sales tax is $807.
Gotcha. Versus the other company, KC, what was their total amount for that bid?
Yeah, if you look at the bid tabulation, their total amount was 1.256 and then but their base lump bid for just the council room renovation was $725 versus Nelson $675. So they were over. So when you break it down, Nelson is the low bid.
Okay, I'm just trying to visualize that with the numbers. What is presented on the screen versus what you're saying.
Well, what's being asked for approval is 807, which is not on the screen right now. The 807 includes sales tax and a 10% contingency.
Gotcha.
Ms. Schmidt, do you have something?
I was just gonna hopefully clarify a little bit. Yeah, with the 10% contingency and the tax, it's 807 for Nelson as opposed to KC Industries would be 867,000 with the 10% contingency and the tax. So overall for the base, which is what we're going for, is Casey Industries is more.
Okay. What was the budgeted number that you guys had in mind for a project of this nature?
I was gonna add on to that part. So, when you go into the American Rescue Plan Act study, that you all adopted last July, the number in that was about 300,000 flat, and then there was about another 80 for some IT improvements related to it here. How we are making up the deficit is that luckily we put in the American Rescue Plan Act prioritization money, and we were sitting on to cover expected deficiencies within community development. Luckily, those chickens didn't come home and roost, so that money is still there. So in that case, we have the 500,000 out of the community development bucket that's sitting there. And then we had the 300. However, some of the 300 was taken out by some of the initial architecture studies for this, but in totality, we were able to shuffle money around within the IT budget as well as our federal American Rescue Plan Act money and make this thing work. But we were only able to do the base bid because we were able to figure out the finance on the base, but there's no way we're getting to that alternate with the HVAC, so.
Gotcha. Yeah, because for some reason I had close to 400,000 in my mind. And so when I look at the 800,000, it looks significantly higher. So that is a reason why I wanted to have a better understanding of how that number came about and where we were pulling the funds from.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're feeling the pinch that everybody else is on construction costs, being through the roof, supplies, materials, everything is just up considerably.
Ms. Williams,
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Sherman,
I don't know that I want to ask this. Is it, if we do the HVAC as a standalone project, is it going to come in even higher than that? Like, are these costs just because they were already going to be working on?
Well, I think what we'll do next year is budget for the HVAC and for the addition. But Mike also has some.
Yeah, I was gonna add to that. The idea is that we could group the HVAC with what we're gonna do with the jail cell renovation and so forth. I will say a key thing of why I'm glad we move forward with that commercial drive bond repayment is we're gonna do everything we can, try to get grants and stuff to do the jail renovation. However, I will be upfront. There is not an extreme amount of money on the facility side relative to the infrastructure side. So we very well could be put in a situation where a portion of it may need to be some council managed debt to do the stuff back here. So we have space, but we're gonna try to get the grants that we can get. But I just want to put that out there, that's gonna have to be a consideration as we grapple with that. Because I've been running the inflation numbers on the BLS inflation calculator for various projects, and it's frightening over the last year.
yeah. All right. Are there any other questions or comments or discussions from council or from staff? All right, seeing none, do we have a motion?
I'll motion to authorize city staff to issue the notice of intent to award Nelson Construction Corporation and enter into contract in the amount not to exceed $675,038 with a 10% contingency in sales tax.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, any additional discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Hi,
All opposed? All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. Thank you, John. Oh, you're still up. All right, he's gonna talk about the historic cemetery grant for the Core Farm Monument sign.
So last year we did a GPR survey and of the cemetery, and we were able to locate roughly 118 of the graves. But there are, according to county records, over 700 people buried there. Walla Walla 2020 had done some research a few years back, and they commissioned that sign that's in the park right now that's up on the screen. And it does list the research that they did and of the people that are buried there. However, it's not something that it's not a very significant sign in that it doesn't have a lasting presence. It won't stand the test of time. And so we applied for a grant last year in the fall to install a large granite monument style of sign that would have all of the known people that were buried in that cemetery engraved on that with their names. It'd roughly be 120 by 96 inches by 6 inches thick, so pretty substantial monument sign and marker. So we were successful. It's a full grant of $28,000. That's what the estimates came in at. Of course, those were from last fall. Hopefully, we'll be able to keep it at that. But the granite that that was spec'd, I think it comes from Vermont. So at any rate, it's going to be a really nice addition to that cemetery and to memorialize the people that were buried there. So we're asking council to authorize staff to sign the grant agreement with the state.
All right. Mr. Jessup, questions or comments?
No.
Mr. Cleveland?
No question.
Mr. Peterson?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Espinosa?
No questions.
Ms. Williams?
No questions.
Ms. Sherman?
No question.
All right, if there's no additional discussion, do we have a motion?
I would like to move to authorize city staff to sign grant agreement number FY 22-0009. Is that correct?
000.
The grant agreement number as shown in the notes in the amount of $28,000.
Second.
All right, any additional discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, it's unanimous, the ayes have it and the motion is passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is a resolution supporting an application for to WASDOT pedestrian and bicycle grant for Myra Road and Garrison Village Way and for Walla Walla Park intersection reconstruction. There's a teller will present on that.
Okay, thank you. So this this resolution of support for a grant is very similar to the other ones you all passed the last meeting, except for a different corridoring. It isn't exactly fully in their jurisdiction. So it's the intersection of Myra Road, Garrison Village Way, and Fort Walla Walla Park. My counterpart, Nabil Shawa, and I, as the manager over in Walla Walla, we've been talking about this because over the years, both of us have received a number of complaints as residents from villages of Garrison Creek cross Myra Road to get to Fort Walla Walla Park. Actually, if you look on the Strava app, the tracks like pedestrians and bicyclists, there's a number of people go both ways across that. So it's going to be very dangerous, especially with the traffic volumes. Myra Road is right now is over 12,000 vehicles a day at that intersection. So this grant was essentially program money to refashion that intersection. likely into one either with a stoplight or a traffic circle, likely a stoplight, looking at the traffic volumes. That will help with safety crossing the street. Additionally, it'll open up some land for us because the issue we currently have is that vacant commercial land up on the northwest quadrant of that intersection. If we were to have a developer come in today and say, hey, I want to put Walgreens in there or something, City of Walla Walla could comment back and say, well, hey, that's going to trigger all this traffic and you're going to pay for a traffic light. Now, in the perfect world, all of the homes that were built at Villages of Garrison Creek would have had to equally pay for that. However, at the time, no one made a comment as to that. So we're in this like awkward situation where until really that intersection gets dealt with, I'll tell you right now, commercial development really won't happen on that property because they know they would get hit with that total amount. So this grant, if it gets awarded, will essentially get that intersection dealt with and get that property where it can be marketed the correct way and sent on its way. And then also, I mean, again, looking at Strava and Blue Mountain Regional Trails plan, people are using it as a multimodal crossing, even though it is not controlled 4 ways. So I will leave that there. We'll be a first to pass this. I know Mr. Shawa will be pushing this on his end as well because the due date is within a month.
All right, we'll go for questions. Mr. Jessup.
This is fantastic. Thank you. And I heard you correctly. You're going to use the grant money with the intent to put the intersection to the extent assuming and knowing that more traffic's coming and commercial and all that kind of stuff. So the grant is intended to go towards updating it, assuming more's coming.
It is, and both of us are trying to get ahead of the curve on this because eventually the Washington State Department of Transportation wants to move the designation of Highway 125 from 9th Street to Myra Road. And I'll tell you right now, once that happens, if we don't have our improvements done by that time, all bets are off. It tends to be a logistical nightmare to get improvements on a state highway. So we need to get ahead of this now before they shift that designation over.
Yeah, thank you so much for getting ahead of it. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, but Mr. Cleveland.
No questions, but thank you for your tireless pursuit of free money and the forward thinking to, create more developable areas in College Place. Thank you for that.
Mr. Peterson.
So Mike, is that property that's south of Home Depot, is that project on hold or did I miss something?
That's a completely separate parcel from this parcel. So the parcel you're referencing is basically on the southwest corner of Whitman Drive in Myra, which is just a little bit north of this.
Got it.
And we're working through things with them. They're just doing market studies and other things. I wouldn't say it's a completely dormant project, though. What I will say is with this commercial property, it's like showcased up on the map right now. I can say with confidence that that's a dormant one until we get that intersection controlled.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Mr. Espinosa.
Just a comment. I think this is great for various reasons, safety and looking into the future for our infrastructure and to invite more vendors and stores to come. So very appreciative of the work here. Thank you.
Ms. Williams.
No questions. Thank you.
Ms. Sherman.
No questions. I think this is great.
Mike, I have a quick question. Worst case scenario, Walla Walla says no. Where does that put us?
We can still submit that grant application. I mean, we would have to come up like with any match monies if they didn't give us the whole amount or whatever, but there is a shared use doctrine concept where I believe we could still do
Still
it.
work with it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I have no intention, I believe that would happen, though. My discussions have been very equal on this issue, because they have the same problem. I mean, one of their most utilized parks is across the road, so.
Right, yeah, okay. All right. Any additional discussion? All right, is there a motion?
Councilmember Espinosa, I move to approve resolution number 22-041, which authorizes city council support of a grant application into the Washington State Department of Transportation pedestrian and bicycle grant program to fund reconstruction of the Myra Road Garrison Village Way / Fort Walla Walla Park intersection.
Thank you.
Second,
Is there a
Peterson.
second? Okay. First and second, any additional discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. All right, Mike, next item is the interlocal agreement with Pacific Little League for use of Lions Park fields.
Okay, thank you. This item has been many years in the making. So Pacific Little League, they utilize the softball field at Lions Park for practice play for their leagues. However, over the years, we did not have a formal interlocal agreement with them at all, which is very problematic for a number of reasons: operations, maintenance, scheduling, getting grants. I mean, the youth athletic grant we received for it made it a lot more difficult. We didn't have an interlocal. Still got it, but it was a major challenge. So with this agreement in place, what it'll do is it essentially sets them as second priority behind the school district for scheduling of that site. And then it also allows us to say, like, when they can't use the site, like for instance, later this year, heavily in the next spring and summer, we're going to be doing that massive renovation project. So that's a given. When you have bulldozers, you can't really have softball games in the middle of that, and baseball games. And then it also, I would say, give some ownership into it as well, because I was trying to encourage volunteers to help maintain that. Now, isn't as critical of an issue with the field we have out there, but with that grant we're receiving from the Recreation Conservation Office at Youth Athletic Facility Fund, then the result's going to be a very nice multi-use field with a backstop, and folks that are using, I mean, we maintain it the best we can, but volunteers and others should help in that regard as well. When I said the city of Colfax, the whole volunteer group behind McDonald Park, they took a lot of ownership over the fields out there. So it's trying to encourage the same behavior, but it's just a general operational agreement within 10-year increments. And it's good to have something because for the last decades, we've had nothing formally. So, and this has passed the muster of Park Harbor and Recreation Board. They recommended approval of this at their meeting last week. So.
All right. All right, thank you. Okay, Mr. Jessup, questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Mr. Cleveland,
No questions?
Mr. Peterson,
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Espinosa?
I think this is great. Looking at the obligations of the Little League, and I think it's wonderful to have stakeholders be part of the upkeep of the field so that they can have a sense of accountability and just pride in maintaining grounds looking nice and keeping our facilities in top shape. So I think this is a great idea and a move in the right direction.
Ms. Williams?
No questions. Thank you.
Ms. Sherman?
No questions.
All right, is there any additional discussion? All right, do we have a motion on this resolution?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 22-042, which authorizes the city administrator to sign the interlocal agreement with Pacific Little League.
Second, Councilmember Cleveland.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any additional discussion? All right, let's vote then. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I,
All opposed? All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. All right, that's all the action items. We have a few, there's no administrative reports tonight, but we do have a few informational reports in your packet to review at your own time or at a later time. We have no executive session tonight. So is there any other business for good of the order?
Nice to see you all again.
Yes. Welcome, Mr. Jessup, to his first meeting in council chambers.
Council chamber, I see.
All right, so there's no, actually, is there a motion to close the meeting?
I'll motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Or
Wait,
We no
okay,
longer-
Councilmember Williams, I move we adjourn.
No, please.
okay. Let's stop. That's
Wait,
right.
stop.
We no longer motion to adjourn.
So if there's no objection,
We will motion to conclude, please.
if
motion to
conclude.
All right. I move we conclude.
How about you be the second?
I'm sorry, did somebody already do that and I didn't hear them?
Somebody's gonna have to explain that to me later, okay? Thank you.
But the motion to, not adjourn. what
Let's
was it?
just
To
go.
Conclude.
Conclude.
Conclude the
To
meeting.
conclude.
Yep,
I guess I didn't speak up enough.
we have to change in words. Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. So if there's no objection, the meeting is concluded at 7:58 PM. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
I'll just make
Aye.
a quick clarification.
Oh.
There was new legislation passed that requires some additional notice postings of an adjournment of a meeting. That's legally using a different terminology, a different meaning of that terminology, but just to make sure we're clear that we are ending a meeting. We're not moving it to a different time and place. We're gonna start using the terminology of concluding the meeting rather than adjourning, so that we don't have any additional posting requirements at the end of our meetings.
Thank
Is
you.
there, are there motions for that, Lisa, or just the statement?
Pardon?
Is there a motion for that, or is it just a statement of
To
conclusion?
conclude, no, to conclude the meeting, it's still the same action, just different language.
Got it.
And Lisa forgot to put the Post-it note on my forehead.
Mine too.
Right?
What on earth happens if I motion to end the meeting?
You can end the meeting, that works too.
Oh,
End or conclude, either way is perfectly fine.
Thank you, Lisa.
Lieutenant Benfield, thank you so much for being here and giving us your time.
Thanks for keeping us legal, Lisa.